The steady hum of the Star Merchant's engines filled the cargo hold as Captain Tom Miller checked the shipping manifests one last time. The massive vessel carried supplies that would keep 3 colony worlds running for months. Everything from medical equipment to farming tools filled its massive storage compartments. Tom liked his job. It wasn't exciting, but it kept humanity's reach in space growing stronger each year. "Captain, we have something strange on long-range scanners," radioed John from the bridge. Tom made his way up through the ship's corridors, nodding to crew members as he passed. 20 years of space hauling had taught him that strange usually meant trouble. The bridge of the Star Merchant wasn't fancy. Unlike military vessels with their shining displays and sleek control panels, it was practical and worn, showing signs of years of honest work. John pointed at the main screen where an unusual shape was appearing. "Never seen anything like it, sir," John said, adjusting the scanners. "It's big, bigger than any ship I've ever seen, and it's heading straight for us." Tom leaned forward, studying the readings. The object was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Star Merchant. Its design was completely alien, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Before he could order any action, the ship's communication system crackled to life. The message that came through was in perfect English, but the voice had an artificial quality to it. "Primitive vessel, you have been detected in Dominator space. Prepare for inspection and submission to superior authority." Tom's crew looked at him with worried eyes. First contact with alien life, and it wasn't going well. "This is Captain Tom Miller of the Earth vessel Star Merchant. We're on a peaceful trading mission to our colonies. We mean no harm." The response was immediate and cold. "Your peaceful status is noted but irrelevant. Your species' expansion ends today. Our scans show your vessel carries nothing of technological value. Primitive tools and basic medical equipment. You will serve as an example to your kind." The massive alien ship moved closer, its shadow now visible through the bridge windows. Tom's mind raced. They were a cargo ship, no weapons, no military-grade shields, but 20 years of hauling had taught him more than just navigation routes. "All hands," he called over the ship's internal comm. "Prepare for emergency maneuvers. Engineering, I need everything you can give me from those engines." He turned to his crew on the bridge. "John, get me a detailed scan of that ship. Mary, start venting our waste heat toward them. Make it look like a system malfunction." The alien vessel's size made it slow to react. As it moved to capture the Star Merchant, Tom put his experience to work. The cargo ship's thrusters fired in an irregular pattern, making their movement appear damaged and uncontrolled. At the same time, the waste heat from their engines created a cloud of superheated particles between the ships. "Foolish humans," the alien voice transmitted. "Your primitive attempts at evasion err." The voice cut off as Tom executed his plan. The waste heat cloud, now precisely positioned, suddenly ignited as the Star Merchant released its emergency oxygen supply into it. The resulting explosion wasn't large by military standards, but it was exactly where the alien ship's sensors were most concentrated. "Full power," Tom ordered. The Star Merchant's engines roared as they pushed through the sensor-blind spot they'd created. They wouldn't outrun the alien vessel, but they only needed a few minutes. "Broadcasting emergency signal on all frequencies," Mary reported. "Colonial Defense Force acknowledges. They're scrambling response ships." The alien vessel recovered quickly, but in those few precious minutes, the Star Merchant had managed to warn every human settlement and military base in range. As defense ships began appearing on their scanners, the alien transmission returned. "Your primitive deception changes nothing. The Dominators have decreed that your species must submit or be eliminated. Your colonies will fall. Your worlds will be ours. And your simple tools and basic technology will be forgotten." Tom looked at his crew and smiled. "Simple tools, huh?" he said quietly. "They really don't know humans very well, do they?" As the Star Merchant raced toward the safety of the approaching defense fleet, Tom knew this was just the beginning. The aliens had made a classic mistake. They thought simple meant harmless. Every human knew better. After all, even a simple stick could become a weapon in human hands, and they had much more than sticks in their cargo hold. Deep within the Dominator command ship, War Leader Rex stood before the giant display screen, watching recordings of human vessels and colonies. His silver uniform reflected the dim light as he studied every detail of these supposedly primitive beings. The escape of the cargo ship had been unexpected, but hardly concerning. "Show me their weapons again," Rex ordered. The AI system displayed images of human military vessels, their weapon systems highlighted in red. The war leader made a dismissive gesture. "Projectile weapons, crude missiles, chemical explosives. Is this truly all they have?" Behind him, military analyst Dan watched nervously. Unlike his fellow dominators, he had spent months studying human history. "Sir, I believe we should exercise more caution. The humans show unusual creativity in combat situations." Rex turned, his eyes glowing with annoyance. Creativity. They haven't even mastered basic gravity manipulation. Their ships still use chemical propulsion. Their colonies rely on mechanical tools rather than matter restructuring. He pointed at the screen. "Look at their largest military vessel. Its main weapon is nothing but an oversized metal thrower." Dan stepped forward, bringing up footage from the cargo ship incident. "But sir, observe how they turned engine waste and oxygen into an effective sensor blind." "That was a cargo crew, not military personnel." "A lucky trick," Rex replied. "Nothing more." He turned to the other officers in the command center. "Prepare the invasion fleet. We'll start with their outer colonies. These humans must learn their place in the galaxy." Dan wasn't finished. "Sir, there's something else." He pulled up more data on the screen. "These are scans from human colonies. Look at how they modify their tools. Mining lasers adjusted to cut deeper. Construction machines strengthened beyond normal requirements. Even their medical equipment shows signs of potential combat modification." Rex studied the data with growing impatience. "You see threats where none exist. A species that still needs physical tools for construction and mining cannot possibly challenge our superior technology. Our energy shields alone make their weapons useless." The argument was interrupted by new data flowing into the command center. Scout ships had completed their survey of human space. The reports were being processed by the Dominator war computer, calculating likely resistance and predicted casualties. The computer's assessment appeared on the main screen. Human military capability. Low. Technological level. Primitive. Projected resistance duration. Minimal. Recommended approach. Standard QOMQUEist PTERN. Rex smiled at Dan. "You see, even our war computer agrees. These humans are no threat to us." He turned to his fleet commanders. "We attack in 6 hours. Standard formation, standard weapons. No need to waste our advanced technology on such simple opponents." Dan made one last attempt. "Sir, please. Their history shows numerous examples of seemingly weaker human forces defeating superior opponents. They have a saying, 'Necessity is the mother of invention.' When pushed, they—" "Enough." Rex's voice echoed through the command center. "Your obsession with human history has clouded your judgment. They are primitive, and primitives must be conquered. That is the way of the galaxy." As the command center buzzed with invasion preparations, Dan walked to a smaller display screen. He pulled up an old human video file he had discovered. It showed children playing with simple toys, then turning those same toys into pretend weapons in their games. Next to it, he placed images of actual human weapons developed from everyday tools. The pattern was clear to him, even if his superiors refused to see it. Humans didn't think about tools the same way Dominators did. To his people, each device had one purpose, one function, perfected through advanced technology. But humans saw possibilities in everything they touched. Dan looked out the command ship's window at the invasion fleet gathering. Hundreds of ships, powered by the most advanced technology in known space, crewed by warriors who had conquered a dozen species. They were about to attack a primitive species that hadn't even mastered space-folding technology. Yet somehow, watching the final invasion preparations, Dan felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had a saying that kept repeating in his mind: "Everything is a weapon if you're creative enough." He hoped he was wrong about them, because if he wasn't, the Dominators were about to learn a very painful lesson about underestimating primitive tools in human hands. On mining colony MX-42, Commander Jane Wilson watched the Dominator ships descend through the rusty atmosphere. Their sleek vessels looked almost beautiful against the red sky. Her hand tightened on the mining facility's control panel as she activated the colony-wide communication system. "Remember your training," she said to the 3,000 colonists who had refused to evacuate. "They expect miners. Let's show them what miners can do." The responding cheers echoed through the facility's tunnels. The first Dominator dropships landed near the main mining complex. Their soldiers marched out in perfect formation, energy shields humming. Their scanners showed only simple mining equipment: drills, plasma cutters, and load-lifting machines. Nothing that could threaten their advanced armor. That's when Jane gave the signal. Deep in the mining tunnels, Bill and his team activated the modified plasma cutters. Originally designed to slice through rock, they had spent weeks adjusting the focus coils and power outputs. The Dominator's first warning was a high-pitched whine. Beams of superheated plasma, far more concentrated than any mining tool should produce, burst from tunnel openings. The alien soldiers' shields, calibrated to stop military weapons, weren't prepared for the industrial-grade plasma's unique frequency. 3 dropships melted before they could react. "Teams 2 and 3, go," Jane ordered. Across the colony, modified load lifters emerged from their hiding places. The massive machines, normally used to move heavy ore containers, now carried makeshift armor made from mining shaft supports. Their lifting arms had been fitted with improvised weapons, drilling bits spinning at impossible speeds, powered by engines meant to run for months without stopping. The Dominator commander's voice boomed across the battlefield. "Your mining tools cannot defeat us. Surrender now." Jane smiled as she pressed another button. They're not mining tools anymore. Maintenance nanites, normally used to repair mining equipment, swarmed out of hidden containers. The microscopic robots had been reprogrammed with a new directive. Instead of fixing metal, they would eat through it. Clouds of the tiny machines descended on the alien forces, turning their advanced armor into dust. "Impossible." The Dominator commander's voice held real fear now. "Those are repair units." "We're repair units," Jane corrected over the open channel. Amazing what a few lines of change code can do. The aliens retreated to their remaining ships, but the colonists weren't finished. Mining explosives, normally used to crack open ore deposits, had been planted along the aliens' escape routes. But these weren't simple blasting charges anymore. The colonists had mixed the explosives with mineral compounds from the mines, creating waves of crystallizing energy that turned the ground itself into weapons. As alien ships tried to take off, they found themselves caught in growing crystal formations that cut through their hull plating. Others were disabled by concentrated sonic pulses from modified rock-crushing equipment, their delicate sensors overloaded by frequencies meant to shatter stone. In the command center, Jane watched the Dominator forces fall into chaos. Their perfect formations broke apart as they faced weapons their combat computers couldn't recognize. Every mining tool, every piece of equipment, had been turned against them. "Central Command, this is Mining Colony MX-42. Jane broadcast on all frequencies. The Dominators attacked as expected. We've pushed them back with heavy losses to their forces." She paused before adding, "And tell the other colonies, their shields can't stop a modified plasma cutter. Their armor can't handle reprogrammed maintenance nanites. Everything they thought was primitive. It works just fine as a weapon." The response was immediate as other colonies began sharing their own modifications and improvisations. A farming colony had turned fertilizer production lines into chemical weapons factories. A research station had modified their atmospheric processors into gravity weapons. In orbit, the Dominator command ship received the reports with growing alarm. Their initial invasion force, sent to an undefended mining colony, had been decimated by mining tools. The war leader's voice shook with rage as he demanded answers. Down in the tactical center, analyst Dan watched the footage from the battle. He saw mining machines becoming war machines, repair tools becoming destroyers, and simple miners becoming warriors. His warning had been ignored, and now they were paying the price. "Sir," he reported quietly, "I believe we need to reevaluate our assessment of human capabilities." But he already knew it was too late. The humans had shown their true nature. In their hands, everything was a weapon. And they were just getting started. News of the mining colony's victory spread quickly through human space. On the agricultural world of New Eden, Robert watched the massive Dominator ships appear in the sky above his wheat fields. After hearing how the miners had fought back, the farmers had been busy with their own preparations. "All sectors report ready," his daughter Emma said from the farm's control room. The Dominators had chosen to attack during harvest season. They probably thought that made the colony vulnerable. They were wrong. Massive harvesting machines stood in the golden fields, their normal cutting blades replaced with something far more deadly. The irrigation systems had been modified too, their pipes now carrying very different liquids. Even the grain silos had been transformed into defensive positions. The first wave of alien dropships landed in the central farming district. Their scouts reported minimal resistance, just farm workers running for shelter. The Dominator ground commander gave the order to advance. "Let them get closer," Robert told the waiting farmers. "Just a little closer." The alien soldiers marched confidently through the wheat fields, their energy shields glowing. They didn't notice the strange sheen on the plants around them or the sweet smell in the air. Not until it was too late. "Now," Robert commanded. The irrigation systems burst into life. But instead of water, they sprayed a mixture of fertilizer chemicals that the farmers had carefully prepared. The liquid wasn't harmful on its own, until it came into contact with the energy fields generated by alien shields. The reaction was immediate. The shields sparked and sputtered, creating chains of chemical reactions through the wheat field. Soon, the entire alien formation was caught in a web of crackling energy, their own defensive systems turned against them. "Harvesters, move in," Emma called over the radio. The huge farming machines roared to life. Their normal cutting bars had been rebuilt into rotating chains of molecular sharp edges, designed to cut through alien armor as easily as wheat stalks. The machine's heavy frames, built to work non-stop through harvest season, now served as perfect armored vehicles. "Impossible," the Dominator commander shouted as his forces retreated. "These are farming machines." "We're farming machines," Robert corrected, speaking over an open channel. "We made some improvements." The aliens fell back toward their ships, only to find more surprises. The grain silos opened, releasing clouds of modified crop dust. The fine particles, treated with the same chemicals used to protect plants from pests, stuck to the aliens' armor and began eating through it like acid. In orbit, the Dominator command ship watched in disbelief. Their ground forces were being routed by farmers using farming equipment. Their sophisticated battle computers couldn't make sense of it. None of these weapons showed up in their databases because they hadn't been weapons until a few days ago. "Fall back to the ships," the ground commander ordered. But the farmers weren't done yet. The colony's crop-dusting planes took to the air, spraying clouds of treated fertilizer that turned to sticky foam on contact with the alien ship's hull metal. As the drop ships tried to take off, their engines clogged and failed. "You know what the funny thing is?" Robert broadcast to the retreating aliens. "Everything we're using is just basic farming supplies. Fertilizer, pest control, harvest machines. Simple stuff, right? But mix them the right way, add a little human creativity." He watched as another alien ship crashed, its systems gummed up by weaponized farming chemicals. Well, you're seeing the results. The remaining Dominator forces finally managed to retreat, leaving behind broken equipment and shattered pride. As they fled, Emma picked up transmissions between their ships. How? One alien commander demanded. How do they keep turning simple tools into weapons? The answer came from a familiar voice, the Dominator analyst Dan, who had warned them before. Because humans don't see tools the way we do. To them, everything has multiple uses. Today's farming tool is tomorrow's weapon. They don't think in terms of limitations, only possibilities. Robert smiled as he looked over his transformed farm. The wheat fields were a mess, but they had protected their home. And more importantly, they had shown the Dominators another truth about humanity. Never underestimate a farmer's ability to work with what they have. In the distance, more alien ships were retreating from Earth's colonies. The message was spreading across their fleet. These humans could turn anything into a weapon. Absolutely anything. Naval Officer Mike Cooper stared at the storage room of Lunar Base Alpha, surrounded by cleaning supplies, maintenance equipment, and basic station goods. The Dominators were heading toward the moon next, and unlike the colonies, they didn't have farming tools or mining equipment. All they had was what every space station needs to keep running. "Sir, they're approaching lunar orbit," his second-in-command Pete reported. 3 capital ships and 12 smaller vessels. Our weapons won't scratch their shields. Mike picked up a bottle of industrial cleaner. Then we won't use weapons. He turned to the gathered station crew. Time to show them what station maintenance workers can do with a little imagination. The crew had spent 2 days modifying everything they could find. The station's cleaning bots had been reprogrammed. The cafeteria's grease traps were full of something very different now. Even the air fresheners had been turned into something deadly. When the first Dominator boarding ships attached to the station's airlocks, they found no resistance. Their soldiers moved in confidently, checking their scanners for weapons. They found none, just cleaning supplies and maintenance equipment. "Begin the capture," the alien commander ordered. That's when Mike started his defense. First came the cleaning bots. Usually used to scrub floors and walls, they now carried a mixture of industrial cleaning compounds that could eat through alien armor. The small robots swarmed the invaders, spraying their deadly mixture. The alien shields, designed to stop energy weapons and projectiles, did nothing against the caustic liquid. "Fall back," the alien commander shouted. But as they retreated, they hit the next trap. The station's ventilation system had been filled with a special mix of cleaning gases. When combined with the alien shield energy, it created a sticky foam that hardened instantly. Entire squads found themselves frozen in place, trapped by what was basically weaponized soap scum. "How are they doing this?" One alien officer screamed as his troops fell into chaos. "These are maintenance supplies." Mike's voice came over the station speakers. "You'd be amazed what you can do with basic chemistry. Did you know that mixing certain cleaning products creates reactions hot enough to melt metal?" We did. The aliens pushed deeper into the station, desperate to reach the control center. Instead, they found corridors coated with cafeteria grease that had been treated with industrial hardeners. Their magnetic boots, designed for zero-gravity combat, stuck fast. Easy targets for modified paint sprayers that now shot corrosive maintenance gel. In the station's security center, Mike watched the aliens struggle against weapons they couldn't understand. Their combat computers were useless. How do you fight an enemy that turns floor wax into molecular acid? "Sir," Pete called out, "they're pulling back to their ships." But Mike wasn't done yet. "Release the fresheners," he ordered with a grim smile. The station's air freshener system had been filled with a special mixture, cleaning chemicals combined with oxidizers from the hydroponic gardens. When sprayed into space near the Dominator ships, it created a cloud that ate through their sensor arrays. Blind and confused, the alien ships began to retreat. Their sophisticated targeting systems were useless. Their shields were being dissolved by cleaning products, and their soldiers were trapped by hardened kitchen grease. "This is impossible," the Dominator Fleet Commander transmitted. "These are basic maintenance supplies, common cleaning chemicals." "That's humanity's secret," Mike responded as he watched them flee. "Everything's a weapon if you know enough chemistry. Those cleaning supplies, they're just chemicals in specific combinations. We just changed the combinations." In their retreat, the Dominators left behind dozens of trapped soldiers and damaged ships. The lunar base crew began cleanup operations using the same chemicals that had just saved their station, this time for their intended purpose. "Send word to the other stations," Mike told Pete. "Share the chemical formulas. Every space station has cleaning supplies. Every maintenance bay has industrial chemicals. And now every one of them can be a fortress." As he helped restore the station to normal operations, Mike couldn't help but laugh at the irony. The aliens had come expecting to face primitive weapons, only to be defeated by window cleaner and floor wax. It was proof of what humans had always known. It's not the tool that matters, but how you use it. In the underground research lab beneath New Washington, Dr. Adam Reed stared at his computer screen in disbelief. He had been studying captured Dominator technology for weeks, testing every substance he could think of against their systems. The answer had been sitting on his lunch table all along. "Run the test again," he told his assistant Mark. "I need to be absolutely sure." On the testing platform, a piece of salvaged Dominator neural circuitry sat exposed. Mark picked up the shaker and sprinkled ordinary table salt onto it. The reaction was immediate. The neural pathways started breaking down, their advanced quantum connections dissolving. "It's the sodium chloride crystal structure," Adam explained to the gathered scientists. "When energized with a specific frequency, it creates a resonance pattern that disrupts their neural tech. Their entire command and control system is vulnerable to common table salt." The discovery spread across human space like wildfire. Every colony, every station, every ship had salt. It was literally one of the most basic supplies in human civilization. And now it was a weapon that could shut down the Dominator's most advanced systems. Their arrogance was their weakness. Adam told the Emergency Defense Council. They made their neural networks so advanced, so sophisticated, that they never thought to shield them against simple ionic disruption. They didn't think primitive humans would ever figure it out. The Dominator fleet was gathering for their final push toward Earth when the first reports came in. Their ground forces were falling into chaos as humans began deploying their new weapon. Salt water sprays shorting out command systems, salt crystal grenades disabling entire squads, even salt-lined bullets that could bypass shields and disrupt neural armor. In orbit around Mars, a Dominator battleship commander watched in horror as his crew fell into confusion. The humans had loaded salt into their station's air recycling systems. Every breath his soldiers took carried microscopic salt particles into their neural implants. "Stop them," he ordered, but it was too late. His own neural interfaces were starting to break down. The last thing he saw before his ship's systems failed was a transmission from the human station. Table salt. Sodium chloride. Knuckle. The most common seasoning in human space. "Bet you wish you'd taken our primitive chemistry more seriously now." The Dominator High Command was thrown into panic. Their entire invasion force relied on neural technology, from their weapons to their ships to their combat computers. And humans had turned the most basic food seasoning into a weapon that could destroy it all. In his lab, Adam received urgent transmissions from across human space. Everyone was finding new ways to weaponize salt. A colony on Europa was using salt-saturated ice as defensive walls. The Mars stations were launching salt crystal missiles. Earth's orbital platforms were creating clouds of energized salt particles that could disable entire fleets. "Sir," Mark called out, pointing to new data on their screens, "look at what the colonists on Titan are doing. They're using salt solutions in their water recyclers to create a defensive shield around their entire settlement." Adam smiled as he read the reports. The Dominators had dismissed human chemistry as primitive. They had ignored basic substances as beneath their notice. That oversight was now costing them everything. The salt disruption effect spreads through their neural networks like a virus. He explained to Earth's Defense Council. Every disabled ship infects others through their quantum communication links. Their own technology is accelerating their defeat. In deep space, the Dominator analyst Dan watched his worst fears come true. The humans had found the ultimate weapon in the most unlikely place. His superiors had ignored his warnings about human ingenuity, about their ability to turn anything into a weapon. Now they were being defeated by dinner table seasoning. Full retreat, the war leader finally ordered, his own neural implants starting to fail. Get us away from human space. As the Dominator fleet fled in disarray, Adam stood in his lab holding a simple salt shaker. The funny thing is, he told Mark, we haven't even scratched the surface of what we can do with this discovery. Just wait until they find out what we can do with Pepper. Earth's orbital space buzzed with activity as the last great battle approached. The Dominator fleet, desperate and angry after their defeats, had gathered every remaining ship for one final attack. They had modified their neural systems to resist the salt weapon, but humans had already moved on to something new. Captain Tom Miller, the same cargo ship captain who had first encountered the Dominators, now stood on the bridge of his modified vessel. The Star Merchant had been transformed, like everything else in human space. Its cargo holds no longer carried supplies. They carried billions of tiny maintenance nanites, each one reprogrammed for a very different purpose. All ships report ready, his comm officer John reported. Every cargo vessel, mining ship, and colony transport is in position. Even the garbage scows are standing by. The massive Dominator fleet appeared from hyperspace, their ships filling Earth's sky like artificial stars. Their war leader's voice boomed across all channels. Humans, you have turned simple tools into weapons. You have corrupted maintenance equipment into instruments of war. You have even weaponized common salt. But now face our full might, upgraded and ready for your primitive tricks. Tom smiled as he looked at his crew. They still don't get it, do they? He opened a channel to all human ships. Remember, everyone, timing is everything. Let them think they've won until the very last second. The Dominator fleet advanced, their weapons blazing. Human ships scattered, apparently in panic. The aliens pushed forward, confidence growing as their new shielding seemed to resist all human attacks. This is almost too easy, the war leader broadcasted. Your weapons are useless now. Your clever tricks have failed. At last you face real warriors with real weapons. That's when Tom gave the signal. Every human ship, from the largest transport to the smallest maintenance pod, released their cargo. Space itself seemed to shimmer as billions of nanites were released in a vast cloud. What is this? The war leader demanded. More of your simple tricks. Actually, Tom replied calmly, it's something really basic. You see those little dots surrounding your ships? They're maintenance nanites, the kind we use to repair hull damage. Very primitive technology, right? The Dominator's scans showed nothing threatening, just clouds of simple repair robots. Their upgraded shields easily kept the tiny machines at bay. The war leader laughed. This is your great weapon, repair nanites. Well, yes, Tom said, but we made a few little changes to their programming. Instead of repairing metal, they now dismantle it, molecule by molecule. And they're especially attracted to the kind of exotic metals your ships use. The laughter stopped as the first reports came in. Dominator ships were starting to show hull breaches. The nanites were eating through their armor, their weapons, their engines, everything. The tiny machines worked with incredible speed, breaking down the alien metal and using the materials to replicate themselves. Impossible. The war leader shouted. These are maintenance tools. We're maintenance tools, Tom corrected. Now there's something else. That's what you never understood about humans. Everything can become something else. A cargo ship becomes a weapon platform. A repair bot becomes a destroyer. A simple salt shaker becomes a neural disruptor. The Dominator fleet tried to retreat, but it was too late. Their ships were falling apart faster than they could escape. The nanites had infected every vessel, spreading through physical contact and space debris. In less than an hour, the mighty invasion fleet was reduced to scattered clouds of metal particles. On his command ship, the war leader watched his empire crumble. "How?" he asked finally. "How do you keep turning simple things into such deadly weapons?" "Because that's what humans do," Tom explained. "We adapt. We improvise. We look at something and see not what it is, but what it could be. Every tool is a potential weapon. Every weapon is a potential tool. Everything can be changed, modified, improved." The battle ended quickly after that. The few surviving Dominator ships fled Earth space, spreading the word to every corner of the galaxy. Beware the humans. They're the species that can turn anything into a weapon. In the debris field that had once been the Dominator fleet, human ships began their cleanup operation. The maintenance nanites, their work done, were reprogrammed once again, this time to collect and recycle the scattered metal. "You know what the funny thing is," Tom said to his crew as they watched the cleanup. "Those nanites will probably end up repairing our ships again. Because that's the other thing about humans. We're just as good at turning weapons back into tools."